But all right, hey, welcome to the Bruce for Liberty podcast. How you guys doing today? I thank you guys for being here on whatever day that you're listening to this because we're actually recording this on a Sunday, which means I'm usually in front of the TV watching football, but my wife has got me out doing other things today, doing to-do lists and stuff like that because I went golfing yesterday, and and basically I'm paying my penance today, and I'm fitting this podcast in because I promised Mike that we were going to do this yesterday, and we rescheduled for today, and my guest has been very gracious on letting me reschedule things, and I really appreciate him. But we got a very special guest today, part of the Nomad Network. And if you're here listening to this, you are probably a member of the Nomad Network. And if you're not a part of the Nomad Network and you're listening to this on my new distributor, Spreaker, I want to welcome you here for the podcast. And you're welcome here anytime to listen to this podcast. We're going to do this podcast. It's going to be semi-weekly, so every 2 weeks we'll come in with a new episode, and some will be live on a Thursday night, but some will be recorded and have interviews and stuff like that. And we just appreciate you here. If you're listening or watching on YouTube, please subscribe to the podcast, subscribe to the network, the Better Soul Liberty Network. Just hit that subscribe button, hit that like button, and if you find the information in these podcasts great, then go ahead and share it with a friend. I would prefer that you share it with a friend or share it with your enemies. It really doesn't matter because I need listeners and everybody else needs listeners. But I've got a very, very special guest today out of the Nomad Network. His name is Mike Korbel, and he's actually one of the first guys that I really kind of message back and forth with Mike, and I want to thank you, Mike, for being here. How you doing today?
I'm doing great. Thanks, Bruce. You know, when you were saying that enemies listen to your podcast, I was thinking of the movie Private Parts about Howard Stern, and they were talking about how people would listen to him to see what he was saying, whether they liked him or not, and they were surprised that more people who did not like Howard Stern were listening to his show just to find out what's coming out of his mouth next. So hopefully I'll surprise your audience with what comes out of my mouth.
Well, I like that idea because I'm my almost worst enemy. I commit social media suicide on a daily basis, and anybody, I had a great following over on Facebook, and all of a sudden, Trump hit and everything, and all of a sudden, my views became anti-views, and all of a sudden, and I wasn't a Trump supporter or anything. I was just kind of I say things as they go and how I see them, and when other people don't look at it that way, they think that you're on one side or the other. I'm going like, no. All I'm doing is looking at it from both sides, and I burn the candle from both ends, and they don't like that, but that's okay. I got a good following now, and I mean, my enemies listen to me, my friends listen to me, and my followers listen to me, so that's all right. And I know that you're a podcaster too, man. So you have a podcast called The Invictus Mind. I think it's a fantastic podcast so far of what I've listened to, and what I'm interested in really right now, because Bruce for Liberty goes along with everybody thinks that it's a liberty podcast, and it kind of is a liberty podcast about freedom, autonomy, about liberty and stuff like that. But we're really geared towards what entrepreneurs do, and what business people do, what people want to do with their lives beyond just their 9 to 5. Because I work a 9 to 5, but I've got many irons in the fire with my own businesses and stuff like that. That's why I had you on, Mike, is because that you do have many things that you're going on. I looked at your bio over in the Nomad Network, and you're into financial planning for families and stuff like that. And I am a Dave Ramseyite. Yeah, you call me a Ramseyite. That's what you can call me.
Nice.
But I was able to do those things. Tell me about what you got in the fire. What are your entrepreneurial obstacles? How did you get there?
Well, that's a good question. Depending on who you are and what context you're talking to me in, you can ask me what I do for a living, and I'll come up with a different answer. But I crafted my life much like what Jason Stapleton always talks about. Having complete control of my income, not having a boss. I've had several bosses over the years, and I don't play well with bosses. So I decided I'm more of a hustler. So I do have 15 years experience in the financial services industry. I was an independent contractor with a company, and so I started that company on a part-time basis. But once I learned the ropes and started doing okay at it, I was able to actually transition to full time. And now I don't concentrate mainly on that. I have a stream of income coming from that. I use financial services when the time is needed. But I'm also doing podcasting, affiliate marketing. I'm actually starting a project where I'm kind of creating a production studio, doing some video work and things of that nature.
Oh, cool. That's fantastic. So, how did you get into the financial? Was that your gig before you started your entrepreneurship? I mean, did you do financial planning for people before?
No, actually, I didn't. I was actually a heating and air conditioning technician.
Nice.
So, just to give you the extent of my my career background, I've done a little of everything. I was a heating and air conditioning technician for about 10 years. I went to trade school, and I was in a union. I was a pipe fitter, but probably within like 4 or 5 years into the trade, I realized I didn't want to do that forever. I was silently miserable, as a lot of people say. When you have a job that you don't like, and I got paid pretty decent money. I learned a lot of skills, but living here in Chicago, you get both sides of the weather extreme. So you get really cold in the winter, and you get really hot in the summer. And I was always up and down on ladders and on rooftops of buildings, and having to take 2 showers a day because I was just really dirty. Well, long story short, a friend of mine, he actually we got to know each other pretty well at church, and he actually is the branch manager of the financial firm I work for. And so he just came up to me one day, and I think I was giving a talk at church or something like that, and he thought I presented myself very well. And he's like, "Hey, you got some talents there. You ever thought about doing anything else?" At the time, I was like, I don't know if I want to do anything else. I didn't admit that I hated my job, but I was like, okay, well, what can I do? I went to school for heating and air conditioning, and I don't have much more experience doing anything else. He's like, well, just take a look at what I'm doing. And I'm like, well, what are you doing? He's like, well, it's in the money business. I said, okay, in the money business. That's interesting. And I went to his office. He showed me this little presentation and what they did for families. And I was like, I want one of those. I want to learn how to better myself with my own finances. So it was really casual. Like he brought me in and he sat me down, and we did a budget. We did a plan for myself, and I got all my I's dotted and T's crossed. And I figured, well, that's good for me. Now what? He's like, listen, you can actually be part of this company if you want on a part-time basis. And I said, I don't have any background in financial services. And it didn't matter, because what he basically told me is, listen, you got me. I've been doing this for a long time. All you need to do is get good at introducing people to me. I said, really?
Got it.
So it was more of a referral kind of thing. I was a friendly, sociable kind of guy. I would walk around and just, if I was talking to a property manager at one of the buildings I was, doing maintenance for, I'd be like, yeah, I got this guy. He's helped me out with, with my retirement planning. I'm saving a lot of money on, getting out of debt and things of that nature. And, if you want, I can hook you up with this guy. So naturally I made the connection. And then a couple of days later, a week later, my friend would call me up. He's like, hey, Mike, you remember that guy you introduced me to? Hey, I just closed a deal with him. If you get licensed with our company, you can make like $500. And so I opened my eyes. I'm like, really? What does it take to get licensed? So, I went through the whole license. I got my what's called an insurance producer's license. I took the test, and you had to pass with a 70%. So I was like, I can get a C- on a test.
Yeah, there you go.
So I got my license, and I just slowly started referring people to this guy.
Nice.
Sooner or later, he called me up. He's like, hey, you made $300 here. You made $500 there. And I was like, wow, that's pretty cool. What if I, were able to do this myself? He's like, well, then you can make twice as much, because originally, if I was just referring, we'd split whatever was written up. If I learned the ropes, I make 100% on it. So, I'd make $600,000, $1,500 on a shot. And I was like, and I realized real quickly that financial services, although it sounds like a totally technical thing, it's not. It's very simple. I teach people not to spend more than they make.
Right.
You don't need to be a rocket scientist. And so, I don't mean to undercut the entire industry, but I learned the trade. I learned the industry. I've read books from people like Dave Ramsey, like you said, and other type of planners. And I learned just to make better decisions with my own money. And then I would turn around and I would give that same information that I learned to people on my own, and just kind of sprang from that.
Yeah, I remember when I was very active in my church that we had I don't want to call it financial freedom because that's a Dave Ramsey trademark, but it was something had to do with something like that, and we had gotten together and done similar things that do, got a workbook and stuff, did our budgets, and everybody, clashed heads. Me and my wife at that time, we were actually like $35,000 in consumer debt. It was we had a terrible time. Probably it was about 15 years ago. And we went through that course for, I don't know, a couple of weeks or something like that. We actually didn't finish the course because it was just too emotionally distressing for us, and then I discovered Dave Ramsey, and we actually started listening to each other. I mean, I don't know why Dave Ramsey was the one, but he was the one that got us together, financially, and we started doing the steps, and it took a while. I mean, it was a good 3 or 4 years, to get out from underneath of that and learn the common sense. And I think that's the biggest thing, is that learning common sense is really hard once you're into a habit of just going like, I can float this to pay that and do this to do that and blah blah blah, and basically it comes down sometimes to eating top ramen and hot dogs for a while, to do what you need to do, and like Jason says, spend less than you make, and stuff like that, and save everything you can, but be able to do what we're doing here. So my next question would be, so you got into that, and I know that you're doing some other stuff with video. Is there anything in between there that you were doing? Anything that you kind of were fooling with, don't do now, a little, maybe a little successes that you went on from, failures that you just said, nah, this is not working?
Well, yeah, sure. I mean, so this is to come across kind of strange, but I have kind of a love-hate relationship with the financial services industry. I like helping people. I like money, but as a libertarian, I don't really like the strict compliance that it has, under it. All the different disclosures you have to make, and piles of paperwork, and so there are times when I kept the income stream going, but I wasn't dedicated full time to it. So kind of in between where I'm doing now and then, I dabble with other types of jobs, and I mentioned I said I didn't play very well with a boss, so I actually was an employment. What's the word I'm trying to look for? I was a salesman for an employment company, so my job was to actually find companies that needed to hire people, kind of like a temporary job situation. So I had sales experience, and I would go to local companies around my area and just walk in and say, hey, are you looking to hire anybody? And so, yeah, we need this, and the other thing, and these are the kind of skills we need. And my job was just to be talking up our employment team and the kind of professionals we have. And I did well with that for a while. I also worked at DeVry University. Okay. While I was a student there, I worked in admissions. And so my job was on the phone just trying to sell education to people who probably didn't need any education. Or they probably needed a lot of education, but they didn't need $90,000 worth of education.
Right.
Kind of got a bad taste in my mouth about the cost of college. So yeah, I've done a number of things in sales, and so just because I'm a natural friendly guy, I like to solve problems. But I think that once I realized that I can keep my income stream up from doing financial services, I have residuals of things I've done years ago. I've been in a company for about 15 years now, and so I'm still making money off of things I wrote up a long time ago. So I found that I can continue building my residual income stream and then dive into other areas, and that's really why I got into podcasting and other things, just because I listen to podcasts all the time. So I figured, well, I can do that. Why not?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, there's a bit, like you said, there's a million podcasts out there, and like I said, I was apologizing to you before we started the show that I'm behind on everybody's podcasts and stuff like that, and I kind of flip in and flip out, whenever I do, because I got my set lineup that I was used to doing before I got involved with the Nomad Network, which was probably, I mean, I've been hanging around Jason Stapleton for 10 years now. This Nomad Network that we're in has actually been the first time that I've really kind of stuck like glue to it. I mean, I've been through the Discord one that he had, the what was that, Blink that he had for a while and stuff like that. And nothing really kind of stuck to the wall for me. And for some reason, this Nomad Network all of a sudden, it got my interest. And I think it's the posting type of situation that he has here that he didn't have on Blink, and he didn't have with Discord or the Telegram or any of the other stuff that he had going on. And it gave me the place to be the nice guy I am. I think that's where I want to go, because like I said, I've destroyed my social media persona on Facebook and Twitter. And I don't know that if you've done the same. I don't know how you are on your other social medias, because I don't follow you anywhere else other than this network. Did you find that things have gone awry for social media in the past couple of years? I mean, how does that work in with your entrepreneurship?
Well, that's interesting. I've been on Facebook for as long as I can remember, and I don't have a huge following on there, mainly because, like you, I don't really like the toxicity so much.
Hmm.
I'm on Twitter. I don't chime in a lot, only because I'm the kind of guy that maybe I live in my own bubble. I don't pay attention to everything bad that's going on in the world. Everybody with a microphone, or if that's on Twitter, with a keyboard, can chime in their own opinion. I'm just like, whatever.
Yeah.
So, but I realized probably halfway into the first year of being in a podcast, I said, I got to get on Twitter, because that's where most podcasters are marketing themselves. So I'll publish my episodes on Twitter, and I might have a comment here and there, but for the most part, I stay out of it, just because, not that my opinion doesn't matter, because, to me it does, but, I don't think the world really benefits from just another voice out there, saying whatever. So I prefer to just have what's on my microphone, and those who want to listen to me can, and I've had fun already. So
Yeah, you'd be surprised how many people actually do listen. That if you go back to the metrics and kind of look at the things, you go like, wow, there that many people had an insight to it and stuff like that. So, like it or not, you do influence people as you go through this podcasting realm. I've learned a lot, and there's still a lot to learn. I mean, Jason basically is the one that kind of got me into. I didn't do a podcast until I knew Jason, and it's been. It's been a love-hate relationship with this stuff. I mean, because it does take time away from family. It does take time. I mean, everything does. And jumbling that time with your entrepreneurship and being able to like I said, I work a 9 to 5, so I work out 5 days a week. I come home, I've got my band, I've got my other CAD duties to do. I've got I've got the Nomad Network, I've got the podcasting. I've got so many things that I got my hands into. Kind of jumbling all that is kind of a situation that you have to learn. How have you figured out how to do that? Has that been treating you well?
I don't know if I've completely figured it out, but I'm happy, because I think I'm freer than most people.
Hmm.
I've got myself to a position where I can just do whatever I want whenever.
Mm-hmm.
Now, one of the things I learned in sales a long time ago was this word called focus. Follow one course until successful.
Okay.
That's really kind of an anathema to the way I operate. But I don't have a 9 to 5 anymore. I do work for the guy that I originally worked for, not as a producer or an agent, but more as an administrative person, just because I know the ropes of how he operates. So he pays me. I work a couple of days a week with him, and he's the guy I'm actually doing the video recording for his events for. So it kind of launched me into a more creative aspect. But then I'll write up some business once in a while with the financial services company, and I just like you, I've got a lot of irons in the fires. But
Mm-hmm.
I just somehow make it work. I can take a month off every summer. My wife, actually, she's a waitress, and so she gets a month off in the middle of summer as well at her restaurant. We could just take a month off, because hey, I don't have to answer to anybody. So I look at it like this way: I don't have any kind of any boss telling me how much I'm worth. When I have to go to work, I don't have to beg anybody to go to work. If I want to make a little bit more money, let's see which area is going to make me the most, and let's focus on that a little bit.
That's a nice thing to have. So I want to talk about influence real quick too. So as you've entered into this Nomad Network, and of course, a lot of people don't know about the Nomad Network who might be listening, but we have joined a network with Jason Stapleton, and all that stuff will be down in the show notes after the show. You can go there and check it out. But what I kind of want to say is like, I have people that kind of look at me, and some of them scoff at what I do. Some of them are very interested in what I do, and some of them just don't know what I do. So, I mean, so one of the things about the influences is that what past people that I've had discussions with from on the Bruce for Liberty podcast has said, a lot of people don't like the what I want to call the freedom or the liberty, or they're scared of that, and they would just rather be a 9 to 5. Or I keep my 9 to 5 because I love my job. I love the people that I work for. It's what I've wanted to do all my life. It makes me, it makes me a good income, so, but I mean, I know I can lose it at any day, but I've got that 35, 40 years of experience under my belt that I can go back on and go like, I can make my way doing this. But have you found that in the sphere where you've tried to influence people to either try to move towards an entrepreneurship walk, or have you not delved into that before?
Yeah, that's a really good question. In fact, that was pretty much the scope of what I did with the financial services company. There's really two avenues that company takes, and I know that this is a byword in a lot of circles. It's half multi-level marketing and half financial services. Well, I mean, it's all financial services, but it's within a multi-level marketing type of atmosphere.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
I really like that business model because it really helps people take control of their own time, like it did for me.
Mm-hmm.
And so what I would do is I would actually, go out there and talk to people. And I found it a lot easier to talk to people about changing their lives with an entrepreneurial venture than it was for me to sit there and say, hey, I can sell you some insurance. For some reason,
Mm-hmm.
people run away when you say insurance, or you say, annuities or something like that. So, like, as a financial advisor, I didn't have as much success. But if I said, hey, what if you could get out of that job that you don't like? What if you could actually have, more security, but not just having a boss that can let you go at any single time period, but you can kind of control your own destiny. You can build your own company. You can work with the people you want to work with, and you can control your time on your own. For me, that was like the nail in the coffin. Got me into this company, because I was like, yeah, that's exactly what I want. I want to be able to come and go as I want. I want to be able to control the income that I want. I want to be able to work with the people I want to work with. I want to, ignore the people that I want to ignore. You can't do that in a 9 to 5 at most times, right?
Right.
So, so a lot of the conversations I had with people is, you know what, you want more freedom. Do you really have freedom at your job, right? You might have heard this one, Bruce. Job, just over broke.
Right. Just over
or some
broke.
people call it the jail of the brokenhearted, right?
Just over broke.
And so millions of people are out there living lives of desperation, wishing that they did something else, don't know what they could do. They probably want to start a business on their own, but they really can't. They couldn't figure out, what kind of tools they need or what kind of skills. And with what I found with multi-level marketing, for example, is that there's already a system in place. There's already people who have success in front of you. You just got to follow what they're doing. And, of course, it does take personal effort. One of the things that people don't like about multi-level marketing is that, a lot of people fail. And when they fail, for some reason, they say some bad things, particularly on the internet or whatnot. And they're like, well, this doesn't work. It's like, well, no, the business works fine. You don't work.
Yeah, you don't work. That is exactly right. That's why I'm a former Nikon guy. So I mean, back in the I don't know if you ever heard of Nikon. They sell magnets, they used to sell magnets. I'm not sure what they're doing now. But back, probably 30 years ago, I got into, I went to one of these parties, and the guy was doing the, put your hands out and let me push down on your hands and this and that, see how I can make you fall over. Okay, put these magnets under your feet, and see how much stronger you are. So I got, so I got roped into that a little bit, and it left a bad taste in my mouth only because of the fact that I knew. Once I got into it, I knew that there was something wrong with the business model, and I'm a pretty smart guy along that. And basically, I really appreciate the podcast that you put on about multi-level marketing a couple of weeks ago. I got I got a lot out of it, and it just kind of solidified the network marketing that I'm doing now with the company that I do business with now, which is the health and wellness products, and they're a real good company. And basically, it's just like any other job or like any other business that you have. I mean, you're going to get what you put into it. And and if you don't work it, it's not going to work for you. And you can say what you want about pyramid schemes and this and that. I mean, there is a great comparison between your business and your MLM. I mean, me and John Odermatt will be doing the Independent My Stomach podcast, which we're going to be talking about that directly, because we're going to be talking directly about our company and what the differences are, if there's any differences in between this pyramid scheme that everybody keeps telling us that's what's happening in this business. And believe me, if you want to talk about pyramids, everything's a pyramid, and that's kind of the way we go with it. But yeah, I've had my successes and my crashes and stuff like that with things that I've been working with, entrepreneurially. But it's mostly been, I mean, basically 100% has been on me, whether I want to be successful or not. So do you have any kind of terrible stories that you've had, or like a failure or anything like that you had that you've been able to rebound and come back from? I mean, I think that's where I want to go with when I'm doing these interviews, is that we want to go forward and say, hey, I've been there, it went down, but I came back up. Do you have anything like that?
Well, I have all kinds of bad stories, bad news.
No, just a
general. Just talking about like in the multi-level marketing world, or just
no, I'm just talking about in general. What I like to do with the listeners that we have right now is that they're listening because they're interested. They've already been interested in the entrepreneurial aspect. So we're going into that. So what I want to make sure that our listeners do is that, there's going to be some bad times, and, those bad times, you got to focus through. You got to break through the ceiling. You got to break through those doors and things that might not be, comfortable to be with. Like Jason would say, sometimes you have to be in an uncomfortable spot to make it successful. And sometimes you got to throw all your chips in and just say, okay, this is not going to work out, so let's start and see if we got something else. So that's kind of where I'm going on with that question.
Yeah, sure. So I mentioned before that kind of in between my experience of starting with the financial services company and where I am now, I had some other jobs. One of the reasons for that was because, and I'm not trying to get too personal here, but I went through a really terrible divorce.
Mm-hmm.
And I have a daughter, and that takes an emotional toll on you.
Absolutely.
And it took a financial toll on me too. So for a while, I was up against a rope. I was trying to balance the cost of going through that whole thing and making sure I could still see my daughter and my family, and there's a certain kind of mindset that you need to have to, especially in that type of environment, to be able to overcome and present and to be solid, I guess. I mean, that's why I call my show The Invictus Mind. It means unconquerable. It's more about the mind. What kind of mind do you have to overcome the challenges that are befalling you? And so I took a step back for a while because, the income was down. My attitude was down. I was just like, okay, I got to go find a job somewhere just to bring my income up. But then you have good days, and I come back. I'm like, okay. And one of the things that I really credit, my success to is that I had a really good mentor. I had a really good friend who was always there to encourage me when I had bad days. He was there the whole time I was going through that terrible part of my life, and he was always, he told me he was my friend. He was, he's not just my mentor, not just some guy making money off of me or something like that. But we formed a really good relationship. And I think that's probably the biggest asset that I've had in my life is the blessing of having, not just one. He was the one guy that, has always been there for me. But I have several other friends who have encouraged me. And so I try to be like that. I try to be the one who's encouraging other people because, you might lose your job. You might marry the wrong person, go through a divorce. You might have a death in the family. Any number of things happen. But, you just gotta wipe yourself off, pick yourself back up, and keep going. So I'm not anywhere near where I want to be, but I figure I'm as young as I feel or as I think, and I'm just gonna keep going.
Cool. Great. Yeah, that's a great analogy. And you know what? Having a mentor and accountability partner is just key in a lot of things. And I think that's the most that I've really gotten out. Number one, when I started being real active with my church, and then with Jason, he kind of solidified everything as far as the way that he's moved his way. Because I was with Jason before he got into the willpower and influence. I was into Jason when he was the liberty-minded guy who wanted to change the world by being libertarian. But I'm glad that he kind of found his way to where he is now. And speaking of Jason, that's another thing that I want to talk about too. Is like, how did you find Jason? How long have you been around Jason? What type of influence has he had on your career, your mindset, your lifestyle, your walk with liberty, your walk with freedom, your walk with anything that he would be involved with?
So I can't pinpoint a day or a time I started listening to Jason, but it's been about since 2016, I think.
Mm-hmm.
He probably had his 5-day-a-week show, and it was all liberty oriented.
Mm-hmm.
I first discovered podcasts in 2016, so I was kind of
Oh.
a late comer to that game, and it was mainly because I wanted something to listen to on my sales calls
Mm-hmm.
when I was driving around, both at the employment company and for the financial company. I would drive, sometimes a half hour, 45 minutes to a sales call, and I'm like, okay, I like listening to music, but I want something else to listen to. So somehow I think the first podcast I discovered was Tom Woods.
Okay.
And Tom Woods, and then Dave Smith and Jason Stapleton kind of got in there somehow, and I've been listening to Jason ever since. I always thought that he and I had kind of a kindred spirit, simply because his background is in finance. So he was a trader, and
Right.
I was never in the military, but my brother was, and so I hear some of the stories that Jason would share, and I was like, okay, well, I've heard similar stories in my own family. I had a mind for liberty at the times. So yeah, so I think I just kind of developed that relationship that you can with podcasters. Of course, they don't know who you are. Your audience doesn't know. Your audience knows who you are, but you don't know who your audience is, right?
Right.
So, I when he started, coming up with his other avenues, I finally said, well, I'm gonna get Jason Stapleton on the podcast because I think him and I have a lot in common. So, I started doing podcasts in 2019 because he was always talking about it. And I figured, well, this guy, he's done a podcast. He talks about his life, but I've got quite a life experience. It can't be that hard to find a microphone and a computer to talk into. So I think that he really got me down that path of being more artistic and more creative. It was something I've always wanted to do. I failed to mention before that I actually went to school for multimedia before I went into heating and air conditioning and like that. And, not to ramble too much, but I kind of started in multimedia. Then I transitioned to heating and air conditioning. Then I transitioned out of that into financial services. And now I'm back into multimedia. So I'm like, okay, I'm making full circle. Maybe if I did this 20 years ago, I'd be, a much different place. But, I think Jason, he's always has that mindset of, go after what you want to do, prepare yourself for the worst. I like learning, I could do a number of things if I had to, if times got really hard. I think just his message of, learning new skills,
Right.
making yourself, controlling your own income, making all that stuff. I was kind of already there on the path before he really started getting into that with his switch with the willpower and influence. So when he did that switch, it was just a natural transition. I said, well, I'm kind of already living that life. I'm just going to continue going. So that's where we're at now.
Right. So now you've gone full circle and you're back into this new, I want to call it new, because to you, the post that I've been watching you on is that you're getting back into the video, you just took a trip with all your new cameras and stuff like that. And I kind of scanned into there, but tell us a little bit about that and your new adventure here into video editing and stuff like that. Tell us what's going on.
So boy, there's a lot to uncover here. I was really interested in multimedia. Why I went to school in the year 2000, College of DuPage here in Illinois, and I went to school for multimedia. Part of the reason for that was, like you, I was actually in a band. I was a bass player in a band after high school, and I really liked playing music. And I actually had an opportunity to work at a recording studio.
Oh, wow.
So I was helping the engineers out, set up all the microphones and run the cables and everything like that. And mainly my job was booking the bands who would come in there and record. But I'd kind of watch the guy as he was recording, and I'd learn all the meters on the board and everything like that. And so I want to do that. So I went to school specifically for multimedia arts. And this was like 2000, 2001. Mm-hmm. At the time, it was a different industry than it is now. Like today, it's really easy. Today, if you have a cell phone, you have a computer. It's really easy. That's why there's 100,000 podcasters out there or more, 1 million podcasters, right? Because everybody can just hook up. Back when I went to school for it, it was hard to get into the industry. You had to buy a pretty expensive equipment. You had to know somebody to kind of get in. While I was at the studio, it was great. I was meeting bands locally in Chicago. I was kind of, in the scene. But the company I worked for, they made an error in judgment with their own finances, and they actually went bankrupt. And all of a sudden, like the guy at the studio was like, "Hey, you know what? You can hang around us, Mike, but we're going to be closing the shop, and we can't afford to pay you anymore." So I said, "Okay, well that sucks." That's how I found myself in a heating and air conditioning. So I was like, "Okay, I got to do something else now." So I went down that path. Anyway, but again, going back to Jason Stapleton, him just honing in and developing new skills, learn things that are going to take you to places wherever you want to be. I started podcasting. I went out and bought a camera, and now it's just like, hey, this is easy. It's not too hard. It's kind of fun. I'm going to do that. So as I was kind of more or less losing my interest in being a financial planner per se, like I said, I could still do it if I had to, but it's not really what I want to do day in and day out. So the guy I'm working for, I'm like, you know what? You do these seminars all the time. Everything's going to be online. Everything's going to be, podcasts or video, YouTube. We got to get this stuff done. I have some experience with it. Let me learn the ropes a little bit. Let me get into this. So it's kind of the best of both worlds for me. I'm going back to what I really wanted to do with my career.
Right.
I've got good connections with good people, and I'm just kind of stumbling my way through it, trying to make this transition. So my hope is next year to build a studio in my house and have my editing suite and all that stuff.
Nice. Yeah, it's a walk. I mean, like I said, I've been into multimedia pretty much all my life. I started out as a DJ back in the 80s here in Silicon Valley. When that's the way you did it. You loaded up your turntables and your truckload of records, and you just brought them every place. And now I can do my podcast on this, and I can do I could probably do a DJ thing on my cell phone. But it has gotten extremely easier to do things. I mean, the access is out there. Like I said, you're on anchor.fm and I'm on Spreaker, and I mean, it couldn't be cheaper to do these kind of multimedia things. And as far as your exploits with your video editing and following your friend around with the seminars and stuff, I think that's just great, a great way to do things. And it just kind of opens up your mind to ideas on different things that you can do to make money on the side. I mean, and they could be your favorite things. Like I've got all kinds of favorite things I do. I've got gardening. I've got a backyard full of junk that I call my damn Yankee workshop, and every once in a while I'll do videos and stuff on how to do things on things that I've just saved over the years, and I don't have to go out and buy stuff for it. So as far as the liberty and freedom aspect of what you have attained through doing these things, I mean, let's speak about that as we're going to kind of gear this all up to end. But I wanted to find out where you are with your liberty and freedom. How has that been attained to you, or how's that affected you moving from a 9-to-5 where you're doing your HVAC and stuff like that, and your financial stuff, going forward to your autonomy that you have now?
Yeah, that's a good question. So one of the things I noticed about, let's just say libertarians, right? I think that maybe it was Matt Erickson who said this, that libertarians spend more time worrying about the government than other people do, even though their message is, we don't like government.
Right.
So,
I'll agree. Matt's a smart man.
So, I fell into the world of, okay, I want to worry about, complain about the government. but it didn't do anything for me. Like when I had my 9 to 5 HVAC job, I was like, okay, well, the governments. That's what it does. So I was like, well, I got to work. I got a family to take care of. I got to pay my bills. Like whatever the government does, it doesn't matter to me because I still got to live my own life.
Right.
So, I was introduced to Ron Paul, and I kind of fell into that whole thing. It's like, okay, well, yeah, this is interesting stuff. This is, I like it. I like learning about the principles. Listening to some of the podcasts and some of the ideas that are out there. And I'm like, yeah, sure, I like this stuff. And I'll even talk about it on my podcast. I'll interview some of the people who have these great ideas or who've written a good book about ideology. But at the end of the day, it's like, okay, but the government's still going to government. What can I do? Whether I vote or I don't vote, the government's still going to government. I don't think I'm going to change much in that aspect. So why worry my time about trying to create the perfect society using whatever policy can be thought up of when I still got to put food on my table, I still got to feed my family and make my wife happy. So that's why I think I resonated with Jason's message of I'm going to try to make myself free. And once again, when I was going back to heating and air conditioning, I wasn't free. I mean, I was making decent money, so I guess you can say I had more privileges than people who had less money. But I had a boss telling me when I had to go to work. I had, I'm going to date myself a little bit. I had a pager. I put in 9 to 5, and then at 4:59 I get a page. Oh, you got to go fix this furnace over here. Or I'd be on call sometimes. It's 10 o'clock on a Friday night. I want to go out and have fun, but I'm on call for that weekend, so I got to go fix someone's furnace because they didn't call during the day. I'm like, this is not freedom. I can't control what I'm doing. I don't like it at all. And so I realized sometime in my life that having a boss, having somebody dictate how much I am worth, how much money I can make, when I can go to work, having to ask questions of people. Can I go on vacation? Please, boss, can I spend some time with my family? It just did not resonate with me. And that was that, along with some of the other things I mentioned before, just the idea of having that freedom in my life, that autonomy to come and go as I want. That's where I got. That's what brought me here. And so, as a hustler, I'm going to bring this full circle for you, Bruce. As a hustler, I do what I want, when I want, for as long as I want, with whoever I want. I mean, I'm not completely financial independent. I still have to make some money, but I don't have anybody telling me what I can do, what I can't do, and I can hang out with whoever I want. And that's the message that I think Wealth, Power, and Influence talks about the most. That's where he and I correlate the most.
Yeah.
So they're called a guy like me, a jack of all trades, a master in none, and that's fine. But I got more freedom than most people.
There you go. There you go. I can't agree with you, or I can't disagree with you at all on that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring up your website here, the Invictus Mind, here on Anchor.fm. And if you guys want to listen to Mike Korbel, there he is, the Invictus Mind, Anchor.fm. He's also on any podcatchers that they're there with. I mean, it's very easy to find podcasts these days. And man, it's been a real pleasure talking to you, Mike, because I got a lot out of what we've talked about. I know more about you now than I knew about you before. And if there was one bit of advice that you'd like to give anybody who's kind of on the fence of doing something, beyond their 9 to 5 and anything like that, even with your financial services or stuff like that, what would be the best advice that you could leave our listeners with today about moving on?
Life is too short. Life is too short to sit there and worry about things you can't control. And so if you don't like your job, go get a different job. If you don't like the government, well, I mean, you can vote or just say whatever. I'm gonna do what I got to do, because as I get older, I realize that I've wasted a lot of time just worrying about things I can't control. And I can control my income. I can control the amount of money I save. I can control my spending habits, going down a financial path, like you said. I can control whether I live within my means or I live extraordinarily because, I might like stuff. I mean, I'm more of a minimalist than a lot of people, so I don't like stuff. I like experiences. So I would say go out there and live your life, have your experiences, but do it intelligently. Save your money. If you need to hire somebody to look at your budget, okay, you can call me or whatever. I can refer you to whoever, and I'll help you do that, because it's really not that hard. Just and I know there's people out there who are struggling who will listen and be like, well, it's easy for you to say. Well, no, it hasn't been easy for me to say, but
No.
I just don't worry about things. I don't spend my time worrying about what happened, on the news, or, what President Biden said, or what President Trump said, or what's going on at, the case in Kenosha. It's like all this stuff that's, I guess is intellectually stimulating, but at the end of the day, it doesn't make anyone more free. So I think that in this life, we still can have freedom if we're willing to just kind of let everything go, control what we can control, and live within your own sphere of influence. You can't influence people who aren't in that circle. So start small and just work your way up.
There you go. Well, I'll give you the last word here to how to plug yourself, man. If you want to give yourself a way as far as your financial services or your podcast or anything like that, you're more than welcome to take this last minute or so to do that.
All right. Well, I appreciate that. Well, right now, everything is just going through my podcast. I'm still in the works of trying to develop a website that encompasses everything. The Invictus Mind, I mentioned, is about political freedom, financial freedom, and spiritual freedom. So you'll find different content every single show. I still do the financial services. I don't advertise it a whole lot, but like I said, if you want to find me, you can hook me up on Twitter at the Invictus Mind. I'll give my email address out if anyone wants to have a conversation. It's just mwkorbel1@gmail.com. And like I said, I mean, I have 15 years of experience. I know what I'm talking about in the financial services area, but I'm just happy enough, Bruce, just referring people to within my wheelhouse. I still get 50% of whatever is written up or whatever help is done by just shopping it out to somebody else. So I could be your expert, or I could just say, hey, talk to this guy. He knows what he's talking about. And so I'm just going out there, doing what I can.
And that's what it's all about, man. Mike, thank you for being on the show, man. I really appreciate it. I've got a lot out of this, and I hope my listeners got a lot out of it too. And if you're listening there on Spreaker, then go ahead and go to the show notes. Everything that Mike said, all his links and stuff will be down underneath there. If you're listening on YouTube or watching on YouTube, hit that subscribe button, hit that like button. Get on over to the Invictus Mind. I'm going to bring that up one more time. Get over there to anchor.fm, the Invictus Mind, and sign up for that podcast, because this really is a great podcast. And one more time, I'd like to thank Mike Korbel for being here. And I will see you guys here pretty soon. You guys have a great Thanksgiving, because we're going to do this before Thanksgiving. and I just wanted to wish everybody a great day, man. And thank you much, Mike. We'll talk to you later.
All right. Appreciate it.
All
Thanks.
Right, thank you. You bet. And then we'll cut.